So looking at the time right now, I'd like to move on to talking more about like what happens once you're hired. So like how to get the most of your job, of your summer job once you're hired. So I'd like to ask the first question to Tanya. So let's say students successfully get a job after their interview, and before starting a new summer job, what should students know about the company? Like what prior research should the students do to prepare for their first week, for example?
Well, certainly there is tons of information available online, and hopefully they've already done that research long before they actually got hired. So maybe it's a bit of a refresh on a little bit about the company because they're just starting, but I would recommend the week before. Now, hopefully we've already reached out to you and set the stage for what your first, week and month is going to look like and when to show up. But certainly if you're getting within a week of your, your first day, I would reach out to the HR person or the hiring manager that you were working with and just chat with them about, what are the expectations in the first week and what time should I show up, and really be proactive to think about how that first week would look. And then other than that, there might also be an opportunity to ask if there are other students that are going to be joining that you could connect in with and meet up with. So we tried to do that as well. And we had one of our students reach out. We have somebody coming from out east who has never been to Calgary before. So we had one of our local students reach out to make them feel more comfortable and let them know they'll be showing them around. So, there's a lot that the students can be doing. And if the company isn't already doing it, I would suggest, just reaching out to the person that hired you and asking some of those questions.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about reaching out and maybe asking for expectations so that way everything is clear and there's no like miscommunications and such.
Yeah.
So one thing that seems to worry a lot of students during their summer position is to stand out and have your work and your name recognized by executives in the industry, even if you're giving like low profile tasks. So Eric, I'd like to know what you have to say about this. So was it a struggle for you to stand out during your summer position? Or like, did you do certain things to have higher ups recognize your work or your name, even if you were just being a summer student at the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a couple of things that you can do. I guess from my perspective, I mean, I don't work directly with the executives, but I did have a manager that supported me, which is pretty high up in the company. So really, it starts from the start. When you start with your new co-op term, you gotta, make a positive impact, right? So not just with the work you do, but being the right fit. And I kind of go back to my opening remarks about, asking for that opportunity. Give it a couple of weeks to, get the hang of things. But, once you hit maybe a month or two, say, hey, this really interests me. Is there any way I can get involved in this project or get the opportunity to do this, right? And that's what allowed me, in my audit term to lead in an audit, but also, get the opportunity to step out beyond my core responsibilities of just being, an analyst and helping out here and there. And I guess adding on to one of the other comments about how to make a lasting impact, I would say try and network with your manager, at least on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. Have like one-on-one with them, discuss feedback from your perspective, their perspective, and go through your accomplishments and how you can improve, and discuss your career goals, because I think that will have a lasting impact on your manager and company, and it'll pay off in the long run.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about networking, and that's kind of linked to the next question that I have, which is, well, more and more young students are encouraged to network in and outside of the office during their summer position. So, Mandee, what would you recommend to students who don't have a lot of experience with networking in general, and how should students network within the company?
Well, summertime in our office is a high networking time of year. So we are really bringing them along for the ride. There's just lots of opportunities. Yesterday we had our AGM, which is an event where all of our staff go in person. So we gave the summer students some warning. We said, you'll be able to join us. We'll go across the street together. We're going to, listen to the president's speech, and then we'll go to a pub after for a toast afterwards. So it gives them that opportunity. We're not sending them somewhere saying, go to this venue and figure it out. We're all there together. Of course, there's an annual golf tournament in the summer, and so that works out as well. We try to pair up teams of people who don't spend their day-to-day together here in the office. So it just gives you that opportunity to talk to new people that you might not see every day. So yeah, summer, there's a bit of an advantage there too. We probably will do something great for Stampede, of course, so that there's just plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, it's great that you pair people in teams of people who don't necessarily work together. I think it's a great way to get everyone to meet each other and to create connections there. So moving on, we might think that education is only something that happens in school settings, but we are seeing more and more opportunities to acquire new knowledge and skills in the workplace. So my next question here is directed to Angie. Are there opportunities for continued education in the workplace for summer students, and where could students find out about this?
Absolutely. So there's the conventional education, and then there's the work experience education. So we provide both. So what our students will get, even if they're in IT, if they're in accounting, if they're in engineering, if they do not have their safety tickets, then we do send them out to get their first aid training and their H2S and WMIS training. And so while they may not have to actively use that type of training, it at least lets them apply that actual theoretical knowledge when they're on the site or when they're experiencing something. So that's something that we provide to all the students. In terms of like the hands-on learning though, like having them paired up with a mentor is you can't put a price on mentorship in my mind. Mentorship is where you learn the most. It's where you learn how to tackle the most challenging situations. It's where you learn how to react properly. So that's why we pair up our students with a dedicated mentor. And then aside from that, if there is a conference that would be beneficial to a project that a student's working on, then we will pay for that. We will send them to seminars, webinars, you name it. We will truly support our students in what they want. The only limitation is that the student just has to ask. And so that's why I say like the worst thing that someone's going to say to you is no. So if you want something, just don't be afraid to ask for it.
Yeah, that's great advice. So conferences can happen throughout the summer, and you did mention mentorship, which is a great way to create a meaningful relationship as well, which kind of links to my other questions that I have here. So summer students position are by definition short-term work experience, and with that small amount of time that you have with the team, it can be challenging to create meaningful relationships and even friendships within your workspace. So I'll ask this question to Tanya. How can you build a meaningful relationship with your colleagues and supervisor during a short period of time during an internship or summer position?
I think I wanted to say, to go a bit easy on yourself as a student. I mean, the first couple weeks can be pretty uncomfortable, right? Like you're figuring out your people, you're figuring out the environment, you're learning a new job. I mean, you could be in a new city and away from your family and friends. So, just don't try to accomplish everything on day one, right? Just settle in. But as far as trying to build those relationships, it really is about trying to get involved, right? So look for every opportunity to get involved in your day-to-day work, but what opportunities are there to get involved in other things? Like we do, a lot of charitable work. We have a United Way campaign coming up. Are people having different events? Like we've talked about the Stampede event and going for drinks after work. And, maybe it's coffee or it's tea, but whatever it is, just trying to get involved. And we've talked about a few things about networking here. I mean, it's networking within the organization and within your team, which I think is really easy to do because quite naturally there's a connection there because you work together, but really encouraging yourself to also start to network with people outside of your group, right? So it's actually a built-in networking opportunity for you because you already work for the same company. So sending a note to somebody in a different department and asking them for coffee, asking them for tea, just asking about what it is they do, how did they get where they are, and really just stepping out of your comfort zone. I think Eric mentioned that earlier, right? Like pushing yourself to go get to know people, make sure, we were at an event the other night and getting everybody to, searching on LinkedIn and getting set up together. So making sure you're connected and just stepping out and trying to do things with people that maybe just aren't about sitting in a meeting together, getting to know each other beyond what it is you do each day, but a bit more about who you are.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about like being patient with ourselves, and that's something as simple as like a coffee or a tea could be like a great way to form relationships, even during a small amount of time. So Eric, you were once a co-op student and you are now a full-time employee at Imperial Oil. So I'd like to know a bit more. Like I know a lot of young people watching us today might have like a summer position right now and they would like to continue the work long-term at that company. So what has been the key for you to getting a full job, a full-time job after a summer position, and how did you make that transition happen from student to full-time worker?
Yeah, good question. So as a student, my whole goal was to come in and make the biggest impact possible. I did take it slow the first couple of weeks because I was new to the city, new to the industry, not my first co-op term, it was my second co-op term in accounting. But I'd say I was also right place, right time, where I got the opportunity to travel to Houston, and also I think I'm the only student that's led an audit in the history, so I really got to leverage that at my end of term presentation and use that as kind of my main talking point, and kind of taking the opportunity to step up and take that initiative and work with other managers, other companies, and complete that process, and just being yourself. I mean, there's nothing out there that will make the biggest difference other than you just being yourself. Go to the events, socialize. It's not about the work, and express those interests. So I think I heard from Angie, Tanya, Mandee, like at the end of your term, you have an end of term presentation to management, to supervisors or your team. That is your time to make your impact, and end it off on a good note. Express your interests. For me, an accounting background, Imperial values getting your CPA. So you need to, want to pursue that, and the company will support you. So you want to reflect those things that will, one, help you in the future and also the company. And you can stay in touch while, you're back in school, try and be a brand ambassador for the company, express how you enjoyed your term, and, it'll pay off. And, I get to work with people I like on a daily basis. And, from my co-op term, reflecting back on that to my last 2 jobs, it's been, nothing but great.
Yeah, that's good. It seems like taking initiatives and staying in touch are good things that people can take away from what you're saying today, which is really nice. So we've talked a lot about like the best practice during the beginning of a new job, but I'd like to know about like the mistakes to avoid. So Mandee, what should students not do during their first few weeks getting hired? And do you have a story in mind of a new summer students doing a mistake that they then find a solution to?
This is a hard question. I don't think I can think of an example. I can't think of an example of any mistakes that were made, not that I'm aware of. But I can say, since the students that stand out are the ones that are engaging and asking questions and putting their hand up and saying, hey, I like it here, and hey, I want to be here. I suppose you could say a mistake would be, to not let that be known, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anyone to, and of course, students are going, you may encounter a shy student. And so that's the supervisor's responsibility to ask, is there anything I can do to make you more comfortable? Are you enjoying your time here? Is everything going well? What can I do to improve it? And then sometimes, of course, they'll say, I love it. I'm just, head down in Excel and I'm having a great time. So as long as somehow one way or another that your supervisor knows that you're enjoying yourself, that's fine. If they don't know, just make them aware that you're having a good time. And if you're not, make them aware of that too. Hey, something's not right here. What can we do, and how do we work on this?
Yeah, that's great advice for sure. So taking the initiative again and raising your hand when you can definitely be a great way to avoid that mistake. So I want to thank you all for the great advice that you've gave today. So if you have a little bit more time with me, I have like one last question that I'd like to for you guys to answer in like one sentence or a few sentences only. So this might be like the first summer position for some students that are watching us this year. So what is like the number one advice that you'd like to give to first-time summer students who want to do the most of their summer? So Tanya, do you want to go first?
Well, I think you should listen to this whole session because there's been some great advice here. I think the one thing maybe we didn't touch on was feedback. And I guess my thinking would be on this: if you're not getting feedback, to go ask for feedback. Assuming you're doing all the things that we've all talked about here today, just really checking in. How am I doing? Am I meeting expectations? Not everybody and everything is perfect all the time. So there's always some areas where you can course correct, and being open to that and seeking it out maybe if you're not getting it.
That's great advice. Sometimes people are afraid of asking for feedback because it can be kind of intimidating, but it's like one of the great ways that you can kind of improve on yourself and see how you improve during the summer. Angie, what is like your number one advice for first-time summer students this year?
I think the biggest thing is when they come to their first job, from the point they start and to the point of when they leave the company, their confidence level has grown exponentially. So my advice to students when they first start is be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to be in a whole different environment that is completely different than an extremely structured school where it's, 8 o'clock you start and at 12 o'clock you have lunch. And, like a lot of the companies are much more fluid with time schedules. So be comfortable being uncomfortable, ask the questions. Worst thing someone's going to tell you is no. And don't be afraid to help out, even if it's not in your educational discipline. Help out wherever. So that would be my advice to students.
Yeah, so getting out of your comfort bubble and trying new things can definitely be challenging, but it's a great way for first-time students to improve and get the most of their summer. Mandee, what would you say is your number one advice for first-time summer students?
I would say in addition to just their job, maybe volunteering for a staff event or a community event. That way you'll get to show that initiative, meet people, and really show that good amount of participation.
Yeah, that's great advice. So kind of volunteering whenever you can is definitely a great thing to add to your resume as well at the end of the summer. And Eric, what would you say is your number one advice for first-time summer students out there?
Yeah, I want to echo everyone's comments. They were all perfect and hit the point. I just kind of go back to, be committed, be a positive person. And, from my experience, Angie hit it perfectly. The confidence level from when you first start to where you end is totally different. I remember in my second week, I said, did I make the right decision? I have no idea what I'm doing. To the end, it is night and day difference. And when you reflect back on it, it's amazing. So, be committed, things will work out and you will get through it.
Yeah, so to have faith that things will work out in the end for sure is a great advice here. So thanks again to you all. This was extremely great advice for me and for all the summer students out there. Let me see. Okay, we have like one question in the Q&A. So do any of you recall the summer students that really stood out to you and why? So Angie, do you have a little bit more time to answer that question? The summer students that stood out and why?
Absolutely. Probably the one that stands out to me the most was in our first year that we restarted our summer student program, which was during COVID, which was a very challenging time onboarding a student, working at home and all that. But what stood out to me about her was just her dedication to learning and her empathy. So she was in a STEM program, but she was just very well versed in the empathy side of intellect along with the STEM, and it was a very nice compliment. And so just that combination of just how she treated people, how she was open to learning everything, and again the confidence, just the person that she was when she started to the person she was when she left was, you wouldn't recognize her. She was a powerhouse. So that would be the one that I recall the most. The other one, she she came over here in our second year, and she was actually a war refugee from another country and came over here all by herself, which I commend people that can do that. And she worked 2 jobs while working for us. And honestly, I still follow her on LinkedIn because I truly think that this woman can tackle mountains, and I'm just really excited to see where her career goes. So those would be the 2 that stand out the most to me.
Oh yeah, that's good. You can sometimes be so impressive to see people do all of those things on their own, and to see them grow from a summer student to like a full grown like a professional person can be great to see. So I don't think we have any other urgent question in the Q&A. So thank you all again. Like, this was really great advice. And so today's speaker were Angie Fricke, Mandee Sugimoto, Stephanie Senakovic, and Eric Zobas. So this was today's Food for Thought. I was your host, Camilla, and don't forget to tune in next week at the same times to hear from another speaker. We also post those sessions on YouTube at Young Canadian for Resources, so we can check it out there as well. And thank you again so much for the 4 of you guys today for taking the time to speak with me and for all those great advice. So thank you again, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.